When the admittance starts slowing down, then I'll start.
Why are we hearing tweeting?
Because people are coming into the meeting.
Oh, that's it, that they tweet
Oh,
when
you
they come
meant
in?
the birds? I thought you meant just the, all the participants will be muted. It just, that's the behind the scenes work. That's our special Gary. He's probably doing that right now.
Okay. He dresses Big Bird.
Couple more minutes. There's still people coming in at a fast rate. So I think we should hold off for a minute.
We're good. Yeah, we're fine.
Any information, they don't have it just yet.
If you're others talking, she says.
Ken, I got a little aggressive with my muting. Please unmute yourself.
Okie doke. Thanks,
Yeah.
Ross.
Yeah, I can hear you
I was
again.
wondering what to do.
Yeah, you found it. Good job. We were testing you.
That would be kind of a dry meeting. Oh, got a little feedback there.
It would be a mindfulness experience, Amy.
Yeah. 2 hours of meditation.
That's right. Just looking at the screen. Notice the calming colors. Think about hope and health.
I will fall asleep.
Got it. She's supposed to be the one that sent.
What's that? Mirror what?
The screen mirrors the screen.
Oh, I probably could, but we're not. I have to redo the display. But yeah, I didn't even think about that.
You know that you're not, I don't see you right now, right? You turned your camera off. I just want to make sure that you know that.
Nope, their camera's on, Amy. It's the
Oh, it is?
Yep, it's the 4 people that talked most recently that you'll see. So that might be why you don't see them, but I see them. Yes.
Oh, how come I don't see them?
They're not in the bottom part of your screen.
Yeah, I just see KM.
Okay, so we're not gonna do it.
Ken.
Yeah.
Do you see it too, Ross? removed me and she added all these other people.
Mine doesn't even work. Shit. Can you help me?
Okay, are you guys ready to start?
We are.
Yep.
Okay, I think that we should go. Hello, welcome change agents. It looks like we have about 160 people on right now, which I'm very pleased about. I want to just introduce myself. My name is Amy Mavius. For those that don't know me, I help coordinate these MC3 events. I want to just go over a few housekeeping things with you before we start. If you put your cursor over your face, basically where your face would go on the screen, a little toolbar is going to come up and you'll see a video camera. And the video camera, you'll want to push to make sure it has a slash through it. That will make sure that that turns off your video. Along with right next to it, you'll see what looks like a microphone. And you'll want to push that and make sure that has a slash through it so that you can mute yourself. If you go down a little bit further, you're going to see a little box that looks like a comment box. And you'll want to push that because on the side of your screen, a little comment section will pop up. And throughout the meeting, you'll be able to ask questions or make comments. So that is what we would like you to use today instead of turning your camera back on or your mute button back on. So if you can use the comment section, we'll make sure the speakers get your questions. And I want to talk to you a little bit that we are recording today. And so this meeting will be recorded. For those of you who missed the Mark Sanders meeting, that was recorded and it is available now to be viewed. If you didn't get a chance to view that, if you didn't get the email for that, just let me know and I'll make sure that you get a copy of that or how to get to it, okay? At the end of this meeting, in the comment section, there will be a link for how to get your certificate of attendance. It's a link that you go into, you fill out a survey about the meeting, and then your certificate of attendance will pop up at the end of it. I want to talk to you a little bit also about Bucky nominations. Usually we have our Bucky hero who goes up and beyond the call of duty, and I right now do not have access to that folder because it's in my office, and I really would love more Bucky nominations. So if you have a Bucky, a change agent that has gone up and beyond the call of duty within her MC3 or his MC3 principles and values, just
and they didn't do that. Yep, they didn't
go ahead and email me.
Yep.
And that way I can get that nomination out, okay, for the next schedule. 2020 schedule. The next time we meet again will be in June, and that is Pardeep Kalika, who will be talking to us about navigating our spiritual path through uncertainty. For those who saw Pardeep speak before, he really talked about forgiveness, resilience, and it was such a good presentation. So please join us in June. If you do not have that schedule, let me know. You should be receiving emails for these things through Constant Contact. If you're not, let me know. I'll leave my email address in the comments section so you can go ahead and email me for those things and get on the list. So let's see. Oh, I can tell you about this Friday from 2 to 4. MC3 Bridge Builders will be hosting a movie day from 2 to 4, and we'll be showing a movie called The Anonymous People. MC3 Bridge Builders really talks about stigma reduction, so that is why we chose the movie that we did. If you scroll up in your comments section all the way to the top, I've added information about the movie and also a link to join that movie session if you'd like to join us on Friday. So today we have Dr. Minkoff and Dr. Klein here with us to who really, by the way, are the pioneers of MC3, and it was not called MC3 when we started, and so I don't take over their presentation or let too much information go. I will now turn it over to them. So if you'll please help me welcome Dr. Minkoff and Dr. Klein. I think that once I let myself out of the video, then we'll be able to see them. So welcome, both of you. Are you ready to take over?
We are.
Excellent.
Let us know if for whatever reason you don't see us or hear us. You know.
Okay.
Keep an eye on that.
I'm gonna get out then, and I'll see.
Hi, Amy. Are we ready to begin?
Yep. Go ahead and begin, and I'll work on the sound noise in the background.
Okay. Can you guys see us now? Can you see both of us?
Yes.
Yay! Okay, can you see the slide that says changing the world?
Yes.
Okay, well, all is good. We've conquered the universe. So hi, everybody. I'm Ken Minkoff, and
I'm Chris Klein.
And Amy called us doctor and doctor, but, we prefer to go by Ken and Chris. And what we're here to do today is really part of what many of you know was intended to be a 10th anniversary celebration of the MC3 project, which started back in terms of the initial negotiating and contracting, started back in 2009. But when we were doing our history digging, we found that the very first official kickoff meeting of this entire process happened in March of 2010. And Amy has that flyer, and she can share it with you for historical purposes. But we want everybody to understand, first of all, how miraculous it is that you guys are going strong after 10 years, changing the world in Milwaukee. So that you can celebrate yourselves individually and collectively. And our job today is to provide you with some oomph, so to speak, some content that will help you in not only celebrating what you've accomplished, but hopefully give you some energy to keep it going and make the change deeper and wider and more sustainable throughout the system. So we've planned this presentation today in 4 parts. And the first part involves Chris telling a bit of a story that helps you all understand that MC3 and the whole process of change in Milwaukee, was part of a context and a movement that went back further and involved lots of other places in the world besides you guys. And then we're going to take that up to give you a little context for how you guys got off the ground. And then I'm going to use the slides that you're seeing. You're seeing the very first slide of the slide set that I'm going to go through to talk about the basic foundational principles of changing the world that inform everything that you guys are doing and help everybody to understand what the actual changing is about. And after I get done with that, I'm going to hand it back to Chris. And Chris is going to talk about one of the most important aspects of this whole process, which is what change agents do, what you guys do, and how important you are, each of you, inside your organizations inside the system, individually and collectively, contributing energy and effort to make the change real and deep and sustainable. And the final part is Chris is going to hand back to me, and I'm going to take the principles that I spoke about earlier in the general Changing the World framework and talk a little bit about, okay, now we're in the middle of this pandemic thing and everything has been turned on its ear, as you know. What does that mean for all these principles? And there's a little focus on how you use the principles in a time of crisis to actually continue to improve the way that people experience services and to continue to guide your work and the work of your program and your agency and your system. So along the way, you guys will have questions, as Amy said, and you'll pop them in. Chris and I will take turns showing our faces when we're speaking. Whoever is not showing his or her face will be gathering up whatever Amy sends so that we have access to that. We will take at least one break halfway through. We may take a short break every time we change the slides. So you don't have to sit for the entire time. You don't have to sit for the entire time anyway. You can get up and do whatever you want. You're change agents, after all. You go change something. So, so that's the basic layout of the day, okay? And so that all being said, oh, and one more thing. On this first slide, you will see that we have our contact information and our website. And you guys, if there are questions you have during or after that you want to reach out to us directly, please go ahead and email one or both of us. Come to our website to look at some of the things we have on there about resources and things going on. Stay in touch. We're happy to have that contact, and we hope to continue our wonderful relationship with Milwaukee. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris and wiggle my way out of my seat.
Morning, everyone, or good afternoon, where you guys are. Even though I can't see all of you, just wanted to say hi to the folks that we already know. Nice to catch up with you again. And for the folks who came on after we exited the process there at Milwaukee, hi to you all. Nice to meet you. I hope everybody's hanging in there in these times, and wishing you and your families all the best. I wanted to tell a little bit of a story that connects, I'm sure, to everyone's experience that you're having. And this is a little bit of a framework for how Ken and I started in this process ourselves, and what got us mutually inspired to really look at how it is that we bring more hope into systems and we welcome people with complex issues. When I first started really seriously becoming involved in this adventure, I was in a particular position that was very, I would say, even overwhelming to me, and that I had just stepped recently into the behavioral health medical director's position for the state of New Mexico. And when I arrived, one of the key things that I was tasked or moved to do is that I sat on the state's morbidity and mortality review every week. And one of the things that we did is we looked at the circumstances around what happened to people when they passed away, when they were known by our behavioral health treatment system, even if for just a short while. Now, oh, I'm sorry, I'm passing something to Ken. So, so what became apparent very quickly sitting in this process was that it was just clear that if you had more than one issue in our system, you were much more likely to pass away within our range of seeing you than if you had one problem. And that's not a particularly difficult thing to understand. But when you see it in black and white and you look at the stories of what's happening to people, it becomes more of a signal, and your awareness goes up. And when you see patterns of happening to people, becomes more of a challenge to figure out what's causing folks to have such a hard time that they would pass away. And the thing that was one of the patterns, which was a very scary detail when you feel responsible for systems and programs that are helping folks, is that most people were passing away within 4 to 6 weeks of having knocked on one of our doors, one of our provider doors or one of our helper doors. And that 4 to 6 weeks just happened to be in this year, which was back in the early 2000s, was that 4 to 6 week at that point was the usual time for a second visit. And so what became very clear to us is that something had transpired between the time the person knocked on one of our doors for help and the time that they passed away. And this became something that was an inescapable for me piece of just terrifying information and a pattern. Because what I began to feel like and eventually understood and focused my energy on is that there was some piece of responsibility that we held for what was happening to people, even if they had only known us for a short period of time. And what was our responsibility and what was actually happening to people that would have, this be, a likely situation for folks who have the most complexity. And it became, a real driver for myself, jumping into unraveling and seeing the things that were really the experiences of people as they were asking for help, seeking help. And one of the things, kind of a summary after a great deal of exploration, was that people were passing away. They certainly had behavioral health, related situations. So there were people who had, violence in their world prior to dying. There were people who had accidents that were not easily explained. There were certainly people who had overdoses and the kinds of things that we know are extremely poor outcomes for people in the behavioral health world. But the vast majority of people were passing away from common medical conditions that were just poorly managed, if managed at all. And it was striking to me that this was the predominant cause of death for these folks. And the question sort of lodged in my mind is, how is it that a significant portion of, the quote unquote behavioral health population is passing away from common medical conditions within 4 to 6 weeks of having met us? And the thing that we eventually found and wrapped into our thinking about what we needed to do is that when we talked to people who had known these folks and as many family contacts as we could, basically what people were telling us is, and this was very difficult for us to hear, is that when my person knocked on your door, they came back hopeless. And to hear that and to really think about what that means was extremely, extremely painful, but also a motivation to really look at things more deeply and more substantially about the experience of the people who we were trying to help. And so when we got in the detail of what that really meant is that we understood that some folks, a large number of people, were living on the edge of existence. And it was very difficult for them to reach out and actually ask for this kind of help, even if they were being brought in against their own wishes. It was difficult for people to ask for this kind of help. And usually what brought people into, our purview was that their life had gotten to the point of being significantly unmanageable. So when they met us, and we were beautiful people trying to help as many people as we could, but when they met us, the way that things happened didn't really have them feel like things were going to get any better. And what people generally frame for us is that when you feel like that, you're much less likely to actually to follow through with all of those things that you have to do day to day to take care of yourself. And if you have a significant medical condition, you're making lots of decisions. If you have social issues that are really pushing you up against the wall, you make lots of decisions every day about how to live through that day. And when you go back after having asked for help, and what you feel like is you came back without a sense that help was there waiting for you to use, then you don't make as many decisions in a direction that would help you. So you may not continue to take any medicines if you have them at all for managing these health conditions, or you may not protect yourself against the violence that you're experiencing in your life the way that you have that helps you stay in one piece. And when that happens for people who are kind of riding on the edge of life, is that their life falls apart very quickly, very dramatically, very painfully. And in some folks, it means that their life is extinguished. And so when we found this, we really took it extremely seriously that we needed to see what was really happening in those first meetings with people. How did they meet us? What is the experience? How is it that we're positioned in a way that they would know that just asking for help and coming was one of the most brilliant things that they had done to take care of themselves? And so we started looking at all the processes on the front end of what we were doing. And lo and behold, much to our surprise, because we're beautiful people trying to do the right thing, what we saw was how difficult it was for people to actually feel like coming was a great idea. And they were met with all kinds of awkward administrative things that they were expected to go through. They may be challenged in terms of how people were approaching them. If they were having a particularly difficult time and they came in a shape and a form that was hard for people to understand how to help them, usually what they left with was that sense that here's another person who doesn't know how to help. And so what we started out doing, which was very modest on our part, is we said, we have to be in the welcoming business. If we don't know everything there is to know about, providing whichever evidence-based practice or whatever that we do in treatment, we at least have to welcome people in care. And our number one priority is to make sure that the person feels comfortable coming back. Because if they don't come back, we have no chance to help them. So as this person who was sitting in this role, I suddenly got very nervous and honestly scared because I didn't know how to do that. And so I started looking for, how do you build welcoming into organizations? And I could find an incredible amount of information from different industries, but it was very hard to find something that was actually out of the behavioral health world. And I just happened on through a friend onto this large document that had been written by this group of people who were, tasked by this large federal organization to do a report on managing behavioral health issues for people with complex needs. And I looked at the report, and honestly, it was quite large. I don't have much tolerance for reading large governmental reports. But I did read the executive summary, and what struck me right away was that what folks were talking about in this document were things that had been brought to them by families and people who receive services themselves. And what the first piece of conversation was about was how important it is for people to feel welcomed and to care. And I just dropped that report at that moment, and I turned to my friend and I said, so who are these people and how do I get, to know them? Because I would like to talk to them. And she said, well, you go to this meeting and this guy will be there and, he's going to talk about this. And I said, great, I'm in. So I went to the meeting, and the person who was at the front of the room talking about, how you apply these kinds of principles and things that we eventually used was Ken. And I thought to myself when I met him, and when I went up at the front of the room and met him, I said, wouldn't it be a great thing if this guy could come back to New Mexico and we could spend, time really going around the system and looking at how things are actually working and see if we can import some of these principles. And it took a little while to convince him to do that, but eventually we wound up doing just that. And when we got started, what was clear, very clear to us, was we just can't do this all by ourselves. There's just no way we're going to be able to influence what we need to without people on board, people who are invested and people who already understand the same kinds of things that we were figuring out. And so we set about really casting a wide net and looking out there for people who were interested in really just, discovering and pitching in to have ideas about, how do we actually change things at the service level. And what we were very successful at was getting people to come into a process to really help at that level. People who are very directly connected to, what was going on with folks at the program level and at the advocacy level. And we brought a group of people together as a modest group And we started thinking and talking and, looking at how we could do everything from create the inspiration of welcoming to how do we anchor welcoming into our processes at the front door, what it really meant. And we realized, when we got into it with the group is like, guys, you know what we're doing? We're changing what happens. We're not just thinking about it or learning about it. We're actually doing it. We're changing what happens in our system. And that's our world. We're changing our world. And when we got a way through this, and we worked together on this directly for about 3 years. And one of the things that happened over that period of time, and I'm not a researcher, and I wasn't really even thinking about doing research on this. I'm a problem solver, and I was thinking about solving problems. But one of the things that we found through this 3 years worth of work is that our death rate for this population of people with these kinds of complexities, our death rate was cut in half for this population over that period of time. And even though I can't put my finger on all of the data details and all of this, I know in my heart that what we did made a huge difference. And I could tell that because when I went back to that 4 to 6 week piece of data, what we discovered was that time was shrinking between when people had their first encounter and when they had their next one. But more people were choosing to come in for a second time. And that to me was just a wonderful indicator that welcoming had improved in our system. We still had a long way to go, but we could see now that we were making a difference in a very significant way. So we lessons and we continued to work and continued to work. And then Ken and I got contacted by folks from another system, and they happened, I don't know how they actually came across, but our work was pretty self-contained at that point in New Mexico. But these guys were from Manitoba, Canada. And they said, what you're doing down there, looks interesting. Would you guys like to, come sit with us and help us think about what we're doing? And it was a very important pivotal time in my mind, because it meant, I wasn't going to be able to give as much time to my day job. And I thought very seriously, what do I do with this? And then it hit me that my life exploration, my story, is I'm really about making sure that, I have the greatest reach to help as many people as possible. And what I realized in working with the change agents is that I was helping more people by working with the change agents for them to be able to do the things that they wanted to do than I could ever do without them. And so my ability to help people out there in the world who actually needed the things that I felt like I had to offer was magnified by being connected to change agents. So everywhere that we went, and it was kind of like a big rolling snowball that got bigger and bigger for Ken and myself, everywhere that we went, one of the things that we knew going in is we were going to help that system establish change teams and change agents and give the groups of folks who wanted to pitch in and do the things that they do, to give them a voice and to really have their collective impact on the system be meaningful and have these things be taken seriously, not just in the provision of services by frontline people, but how do you get these things anchored into the bureaucracies of these systems? And so over the years, and we've been doing this now for quite some time, over the years, we have I think, been quite successful in helping these systems develop their change teams. And some of these teams, like you guys, which amazing, have carried on for many, many years. And long after we've gone. And so what, Ken and I feel like is that one of the successes that we've had in our work is really creating something that is sustainable and gives the system the power and the potential, to do the things that that system wants to do. And it's a struggle. We know that it's not easy because we've seen the struggles that these teams have and these systems have. But what we've also seen is that the change agents are solid. And even though systems may change and leadership comes and goes, as it always does over time in all systems, the change agents are glue. And they can keep that system on the straight and narrow path, even when the world around them is having all the hiccups that it can possibly have. And so the change teams and this kind of, collective voice is part of what holds systems together. It's part of what gives system the capacity to actually embed things into service. And it's part of what helps people who actually deliver care understand that they can be successful, and that taking those steps of figuring out how they in their own practice develop their welcoming and how they work with their teams and how welcoming comes in, at that level, that change agents are critical in all of those regards. And you guys can see this in your own selves, the things that you've been able to accomplish over the last decade. Even though they've probably not been as fast as you might like them to be, they're amazing. And so, Ken and I applaud you on this 10th anniversary. And we're very much looking forward to, in this conversation, just refreshing everybody's memories by going through some of the principles and things that kind of inspired the early days. And if you've not seen these before, we want you to know that the things that we'll be talking about are very much related to the principles and the concepts that you all have organized for yourselves over the years into the materials that you use. So with that, thank you very much for listening. I'm going to flip it back to Ken, and I'm going to scoot out of the picture so you can focus on Ken, and then I'll be back a little later. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you guys, Amy, let me know if you can see me okay.
You're doing good, Ken.
All right. So I'm going to pick up a little bit where Chris left off and kind of translate into how all that got things started in Milwaukee. And then walk through these slides with you, and I'll tell you a little bit about the slides as we go along. So after Chris and I started working in Winnipeg and then in Manitoba, we started getting calls and opportunities to go change the world in lots and lots of different places. We created our company, which is now called Zia Partners. And we actually worked in multiple different states. And I don't even want to go through the list, as well as in multiple Canadian provinces, creating change teams in all of these different places. And over the years, some of those, like you guys, some of those change teams are still cranking along and growing and getting bigger and stronger. And that to us means that the energy is valuable and continues to be sustained. And over the years also, we moved from a focus on just looking at people who had both mental health and substance issues as the focus, which is where we started, to looking at all kinds of complex challenges that people were dealing with, and developing and refining the tools and materials and ways of approaching this to help systems make progress, changing the world for people with more and more different kinds of complexity and more different kinds of partner systems, to make it simpler for systems to make progress. So by the time that we started with Milwaukee in 2008 and 9, we had been doing this all over the United States. And we were at that point, just to pick a system that was close to you, we had really done a deep dive and been implementing this process throughout the entire state of Michigan, and had 2 teams of change agents statewide, the Northern Michigan group, which had about 100 and some odd people, and then the Southern Michigan group, which had about 300 people. And all of the different subsystems in Michigan, which is not quite organized the same as Wisconsin, were involved in doing this kind of improvement activity using our tools and so on. So we were very excited when Walter Locks and Jennifer Whitwer asked us to come work with BHD and the community services branch in particular, to help bring together everyone across the universe of adult mental health and substance use services to do this process. And one of the things that is important, I think it's important to keep this in mind from what Chris was saying. Right from the beginning, we have never been interested in saying we're going to change one program or create a special pilot project. Everything from the beginning, right from the whole state, dealing with the state of New Mexico, as Chris is the state medical director, is we're going to do what we do in a way that involves every single program in the state and every single person providing care in the state at every level. So the wonderful thing about Milwaukee is that we were invited in with that level of energy and ambition to change the whole universe of care, including all the community services, also the institutional services and the crisis services, and engage partnerships with community hospitals, and all of the kinds of things that would create broad reach in a very complicated service system. And you guys got off the ground with a lot of oomph. And, again, as I was talking, Amy has these historical materials. Pam Flighter, will show you some of the early stuff that we developed for the first steering committee, which was a partnership from people with lived experience and all different kinds of agency leaders and people from the county, kind of thinking about what all of the programs and agencies were going to commit to do and how to set up change agents and what change agents were going to do. And not only the principles, but what was everybody actually going to do to create change? And this is, eventually everybody settled on calling it MC3, and MC3 has come to stand for different and more ambitious things. And eventually Amy got hired, who has created all this oomph to keep the thing going and energized and excited and organized to bring out the reach to all of you and all of your agencies and programs to keep this going. And, Milwaukee, as you know, is a constant political adventure. But you guys have stayed the course right through the middle of it to maintain a set of values and vision about what's going on. And we really appreciate how much you've all brought to the table to continue to make progress. And what I want to do with these slides is to kind of help reaffirm the foundation, not only of the principles, but what are the interventions that are tied to the principles, and how do you go about making change in an entire system? Now, in this slide set, before I go into it, what I sent to you guys is very long. And one of the reasons I did that, I'm not going to go through all of it at all. I'm going to go through a small subset. But one of the things that we wanted to do was to share some of the newer material that we've developed since we stopped working with you all about 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And so that you could decide, oh, May, there's some cool, useful stuff here. What can we do with it? And so forth. So some of the material is, includes things that some of you have seen, the 12 steps for changing the world and changing the world in agencies, programs, and systems. But some of it is a lot deeper dive on how to help people develop the various competencies that relate to the interventions that are involved in changing. So let me start with, so to the extent that you have interest in this additional material, just, let Amy know, and, we can help you figure out how to learn it or practice it or get a better handle on it. So in this slide, one of the ways we take this first slide that you're looking at is we say, this is what we do for a living, Chris and I. I mean, we're psychiatrists, we're consultants, but we're in the changing the world business. And our job is working with systems and organizations of all sizes and shapes, states, counties, regions, provider networks, large organizations, small organizations, helping systems at every level to organize themselves to be about the needs, hopes, and dreams of people and families with all kinds of complex challenges that are needing help. And the biggest driver for doing this, as you know, are the people themselves. That people with all kinds of complex challenges are coming to the door of the thing we call our system every single day. And they encounter systems and structures and rules and processes, bureaucracy, make it a job help when you're complex, it's going to be really hard. Not only do the people we serve experience this, so do we. Most of us went into this business not because we thought this was a cool way to become a millionaire, but because we had the weird idea that we wanted to be about helping people. And we too go into work inside the big complicated system. And we too find ourselves immediately encountering all these same rules and requirements and structures and instructions that right away start making us feel like our mission and values, which is at the heart of what we do, is going to be really difficult to achieve. And one of the things that Chris and I have committed ourselves to, and you guys have stepped into, is the idea that we're not going to address this issue just by creating special programs or special projects or hiring special people with extra resources we don't have. What we actually need to be doing is thinking about how to change our system at every level so that every part of the system, every single thing we do, every process in the system, every program in the system, every policy, every procedure, every practice, every piece of paperwork, every person providing help with every penny that we have is organized to be about the people that we're serving and the values that got us into this business in the first place. And saying that out loud, the first thing that is important is realizing that it is possible to do. The minute you decide that because the system has all this bureaucratic challenge, you have to give up your values to be part of it, you have actually stepped back from what it's possible to achieve. And it's why that, we create a roadmap for how to get there, and we engage all kinds of people with all kinds of energy to keep moving down the path because it isn't something that's easy to accomplish and it doesn't happen quickly. Now, when we start these conversations with systems, we start by putting particular groups of people in the middle of the conversation. And we call this the complexity challenge. And your understanding of complexity has evolved, as ours has, over the years. So when we start with complexity, we started by looking at people who, and complexity means that there are people who come in with lots of issues who don't easily fit the way the system was originally designed. And most systems and programs and things we do have been historically designed around the idea that people only have one problem at a time, and they're simple. And that's actually backwards. And it means that we do everything in a way that makes everything harder for us and the people we're serving. So if we start with complexity, what are we starting with? Well, we start with people who have, say, both mental health and substance issues. That's one way of thinking of complexity. But, as you know, we also can talk about health issues, cognitive challenges, legal issues, parenting issues, housing issues, medical issues, cultural and linguistic barriers, social relationship challenges, financial challenges, disability, etc. Okay? So we have people showing up inside behavioral health with lots of issues. So just as an example of thinking about co-occurring mental health and substance, it's like any person of any age with any combination of any mental health issue and any substance issue or addictive issue, whether or not they've already been diagnosed. We also talk about co-occurring or complex families, where one member might have one kind of problem, like a child with an emotional disturbance, and another member might have another kind of problem, like a family member or caregiver with a substance use issue, so that the family system needs an integrated approach. Now, why do we think about starting with people with complexity if we're trying to change the whole system? Well, the first thing is that folks with complexity are everywhere. They're in every single service we offer, and they're in services operated and offered by all of our partners. In addition, we know that the more complex you are, the worse you're likely to be doing. So these are the folks who are likely to be having the poorest outcomes and the highest costs in our scarce resource service system, ranging from they're more likely to be labeled as treatment resistant and non-compliant. They're more likely to engage in self-destructive or violent behavior. They're more likely to be victims of trauma, perpetrators of trauma, or both. They're more likely to be in trouble in multiple systems. They're more likely to cost a lot of money. And as Chris was saying, they're more likely to die. In addition, we know that whatever issues people show up with, they bring lots of other issues with them. So these are folks who have all those other issues together, okay? And so we start thinking, okay, if our job is to organize our system to be about the people who need us, actually, we would be thinking that all of these folks, individuals and families with lots and lots of co-occurring issues and other complex needs, are specifically, purposefully, and prioritized for help wherever and whenever they show up. And what we realized pretty quickly, as Chris realized originally in New Mexico, is it's just the opposite. These people originally tend to be experienced as misfits at all levels of the system. At the system level, these are folks who are often, being served in systems where the whole system has been organized, funded, and regulated as if everybody had one problem only or only one problem at a time. Programs are similarly designed, so real programs working with real people are constantly feeling a need to contort their clients to fit their program or their program to fit their clients instead of feeling like everything is designed to fit. These folks are also experienced as misfits at the level of the skills of the people providing help. Most folks are trained to think of themselves originally in one domain. So when we encounter somebody with more than one issue, we feel like this person doesn't fit what we know. We don't know how to help them, and they start experiencing this as well. And we often actually wind up experiencing these folks not only as misfits, we wind up experiencing them negatively. They don't fit neatly into what helps us feel successful. They have trouble following all of our rules to do all the beautiful things we want them to do to achieve the lovely outcomes we wish they would achieve. And so they start stirring up feelings in us. And the feelings range from feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, and despair to frustration, irritation, and murderous rage. And they acquire those labels that we reserve for people who make us feel bad that way. They become the antisocial, manipulative, borderline, med-seeking, non-compliant sociopaths. And we're often introduced to them by our colleagues before we've ever met them. Guess who's back? And guess what? You're going to deal with them this time. So the folks who are having the poorest outcomes and the highest cost are not only not prioritized, they're people we're programmed throughout the system to be holding at arm's length. So one of the starting places for redesigning the system is to start building a system, which is what you guys have been working on, where the people with multiple challenges who need us the most are specifically, purposefully, and proactively welcomed for help exactly as they are, wherever and whenever they show up. And what are we welcoming them into? Well, Chris already said, we're welcoming them into hope. And the first sentence here is, as you know, and as we were talking about, when people lose hope, they do worse. The more complex you are, the more you feel like you might not fit, the more we start acting like we're not sure what to do with you, the more likely you are to lose hope and do worse. So one of the things we say right at the front, not only are we welcoming people in, our job is to inspire them with hope. Not just the people who fit well that we easily know how to help, but especially the people who don't, because they need to feel like they made a good choice meeting us, that by virtue of their connection with us, their life is going to be better. Even if we don't immediately know exactly how to get there, we hang in there, it's going to be better. And the key word on this slide is that we need to be in the hope business. So Chris and I are not only clinical thinkers, we're organizational thinkers, and we want all of you to be as well. We're not just thinking about, what are good values to have? We want to actually create organizational processes that are about those values. And so there's a phrase in the organizational science literature, the management science literature, every business, every organization, every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets. So this makes us stop and think about what is our business as a behavioral health program, agency, organization, or system. Is our most important product delivering billable units or proper paperwork? Or is our most important product welcoming and hope for the people we serve? And if we decide that it's the latter, then we have to consciously and purposefully build organizational policies, procedures, paperwork, and practice to reinforce the values that we're trying to deliver to the people who need them. And when we're in the hope business, it is a priority. It is delivered in the way we do our work, by the instructions we get and the paperwork that we get and so forth. That every person, especially those who have the greatest challenges, is inspired when they meet us with hope for achieving a happy, hopeful, productive, and meaningful life. So this is foundational for the kind of system that we are hoping that everybody creates and that you guys have come together to produce. And you start thinking, how well is your system, but also how well is your own agency and your own program designed to be in the welcoming and hope business for people with complex challenges? Now, the next reason that we start with complexity is not only that these folks are doing poorly, but as you know, there are lots of them. It's not that we have a whole system full of people who just have one issue and a few weird people off to the side that have multiple issues. In fact, having somebody who shows up at our door with only one problem, wow, that's a celebration. Here's a weird situation. Let's have a case conference. Somebody is simple. Complexity is an expectation, not an exception. And there's all kinds of literature and epidemiologic data about that, but you know that because you see it every day. So we're in the complexity business. We have to design everything from the front door of welcoming to the inspiration of hope to everything we do on the expectation that the next person we see is going to have multiple issues. And we need to know that helping them with all of those issues is exactly what we do. So all services are designed in the system we're trying to create to welcome, engage, inspire, and provide integrated helpfulness to people and families with multiple issues of all kinds. So, okay, so now we're talking about changing systems. So what's a system? Okay, the system, as you guys all know, in Milwaukee County, is not just sitting up in BHD somewhere. You know, we go in there and shake up a couple of people up there and everything's fixed. Your system, like every other system, is like a set of nesting Russian dolls that are not quite so nesting. You have the state and you have the county and you have this part of the county and that part of the county and you have, you know, this Medicaid special thing and the other Medicaid, you know, CCS and this and that and whatever. You have the children's, you know, system payment structure. And then you have all your agencies and, you know, your agencies do different things and different levels of care. And some of your agencies are really big and you have lots of programs all over the planet. And some of them are really tiny little agencies that, you know, have one little office somewhere. And that's you. You're just like everybody else. So transforming a system is not something that's done way up at the top. It's a way of creating a partnership, which is what MC3 represents, that involves every part of the system. And every part of the system has to be working on its own self to make progress. And if you're in a provider agency, as most of you are, that means the whole agency, every program, and every person is working toward this vision, which requires the agency to develop its own change plan. And it means that change agents within that agency have a very important job to help their own bosses to figure out how to help create and inspire change at all levels. So in the model that we use, which has informed MC3, it's what you're doing, and what is included in all that wheel of values that you have is a basic framework. Every single program in the system becomes a complexity or program. Every program is a co-occurring program. So if somebody, we're occurring program, Milwaukee, we all are, okay? Because all of us are dealing with people with needs. And everybody does what they can for the people who are best fit for the service that they're offering. Every program in the system becomes welcoming, hopeful, recovery-oriented, resiliency-oriented, if you're working with kids, trauma-informed, and what we call co-occurring or complexity-capable. Not only every program, every single person providing help. Okay? All of you, all of your colleagues, everybody goes down a path to become what we call complexity capable or complexity competent as well. And we call this a recovery program for systems. And we have 12 steps of slides, which are later that I won't show you today. But the idea is that, you know, if you know something about how individuals go through a recovery process from being all messed up to really having a beautiful life, they follow a program step by step. They don't get there overnight. Well, we talk about how systems and agencies and programs follow a program of recovery individually and collectively. But it's an organizational program. It's using best practice organizational change models to implement best practice clinical intervention systematically through the system. So what do we mean by this? Well, what does it mean for a program to be, every program to be a co-occurring program? First of all, every program is in the complexity business. Every program has a different job. And your job as a program is based on what is it that you got hired to do. Do you do adult mental health case management? Do you do recovery support? Do you do crisis intervention? Do you do residential substance care for pregnant women? Do you do school-based outreach for kids with emotional disturbance? Wherever you do and wherever you do it, you're encountering people, individuals and families who have multiple needs. And your job is to organize yourself as a program within your mission. Who do we serve? What are we supposed to do with them? Within the bucket of resources we already have, to be able to help the people with complexity who are already there. Okay? And if we knew when we were first invented all the things we now know about how to do that, how would we have built that into our policies, procedures, practices, workforce, everything that we do? So we were really good at it. And even if we all left and new people got hired, they would just walk in and keep doing it because we built it that way. That's what we're talking about. And we have tools, okay? So we have tools for programs and systems. Compass Exec is for the county leadership. They've used that to help them. The program tool, Compass EZ, is for behavioral health programs. And we have tools for other kinds of programs. And we have 12 steps for programs. But we also have at the staff level, every person providing help is developing core competency. This is not about...
Because the seed has been planted, the road and the path have been paved.
Thank you.
Now what we have to do.
Hi, Amy. Somebody was just talking very impassionedly.
Yep, we're looking for it now.
Okay. So every person is helped not to get multiple licenses, although if you want that, I'm sure that's something that you can pursue. But whether you have 1 license, 2 licenses, 6 licenses, or none, we want everybody to have the right instructions within their job and level of training to know how to be an inspiring and helpful partner to the people and families with complex needs that are likely to be in their caseloads. And as you guys know, sometimes the most helpful people are the ones who have the least professional training. People who are providing recovery support, the person working the Saturday night overnight shift in residential addiction treatment when everybody is trading psych meds and behaving strangely, the person working the residential Saturday night overnight shift in the psych unit when everybody's sitting around comparing notes on where to buy the best marijuana in Wisconsin. Everybody can be helped to know what to do to be a helpful partner as part of the team for the people they're actually serving. And we have tools for staff as well. So this is your vision. That's why you're here. So the next question is, what do you do? Okay, and this is what you guys have been organizing yourselves about for the last decade. And, hopefully you'll get some ideas about what to do for the next decade. So the first thing is, we need to know how to actually do this on the ground in terms of how we help people. And the good news is there actually has been an accumulation of research over decades helping us understand how to help people. And the thing that we've learned about this, which I'm going to be going through, is that helpfulness can be really, really simple. In fact, the more complicated the people, the more complicated the system. What we've learned is the more complicated the issues, the simpler it helps everybody to be. And one of our problems as a behavioral health universe is that we make everything so damn complicated for ourselves. We use all kinds of crazy jargon, so we don't even understand what we're talking about, let alone the people we're trying to serve. And we forget how important it is to find the simple stuff that works and build it into what we do so it's anchored in place. And that's what the principles are about. Over the years, we focused on 6 principles and a set of interventions about how to make things simple to implement. Simple doesn't mean easy, okay? Simple is important because changing what you do, because so much of what we do is built backwards, so it's unwelcoming and unhopeful and all the other things. It's hard to make it go the right way, but you want to keep focused on the fact that doing the right thing is pretty simple once you get the barriers out of the way and put the right supports into place. Secondly, we know how to get there organizationally, and this is where you guys come in. So there's a recovery process for systems that Milwaukee has been following for the last 10 years. It creates a partnership. Let's bring all of the agencies in. Let's work as partners across the boundaries of mental health and addiction, together vertically between the county and the CEOs and the program managers, frontline change agents, people with lived experience. And let's structure that partnership. So we have steering committees and other committees and MC3, and we all work together. And most importantly, let's recognize that this needs to be not just top down, but top down, bottom up, and back again. So we're going to create a county-wide team of change agents representing every single component and voice of the system. And they're going to become a powerful team whose job is to work in partnership with leadership to overthrow the established order of the system and lay the groundwork for new stuff in place, not just when they come to MC3 meetings, but most importantly, back home in their own organizations. And we're going to steadily look, and this is one of the things that places often forget, we're not just going to have, there's nothing on here about training, because training doesn't create change unless the change is built into the bureaucracy. So if we're going to do something different and we're going to do it regularly, we can't just have a training about welcoming. We have to have welcoming rules in our program. We have to practice welcoming. We have to rehearse welcoming. We have to rehearse building hope. We have to have hopeful paperwork that we use with our people when we're all feeling discouraged. We have to build this into every detail of our architecture. And Chris and I have developed tools over the years, many of which you already have, and we've got some new ones to help you to do this. And this is a big recovery process for systems. So we want you all to come together and think of MC3 as a system change 12-step meeting. And every one of you is here within the spirit of the serenity prayer. The serenity to accept the things you cannot change, which is everybody else. The courage to change the things you can, your own work, your own team, your own program, your own organization, your own span of control, wherever you happen to be, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, how do we get there? Well, the simple thing is to build everything around the principle. So there are 6 principles and a set of interventions attached. And I'm going to just walk through them. And then Chris will come and talk to you about how you guys dive in and help make this happen back home. So principle number 1, co-occurring or complexity is an expectation. Let's build that in a welcoming manner into everything we do. Step 1, welcoming is not just being nice. Welcoming is a formal technology and practice that we all know as customer service. And if you've ever had customer service training, you know that companies in the customer business, which we need to be, help everybody understand exactly what to say, not just to the easy, friendly customers, but to the challenging, difficult customers. And those are the people who need us the most, and there are lots of them. So we start with basic welcoming. Hi there. You're one of those folks who has lots of issues. Well, you're hearing voices. Smells like you had stuff to drink on your way over here today. You have lots of physical problems. You're in a wheelchair. You just lost your housing and you're in trouble with your law, and your family wants nothing to do with you. You know, you're the kind of person we most love to work with here because you're the kind of person who's having the hardest time. We know it could not have been easy for you to show up here today. Thank you for coming. You're in the right place. We're really, really glad you're here. We know it's not our job to fix you, perfect you, refer you, control you the minute you show up. Our job is to get to know you, inspire you with hope, and help you get connected to us and other people we may meet along the way to help you with all your issues so you can have a happy, hopeful, beautiful life. There's nothing in that speech that's rocket science. the question we ask is, how well organized are we? So that when people show up who are challenging, everybody knows that their job is to say stuff like that. From the heart, looking people right in the eye. Part of welcoming as well is welcoming the opportunity to see all the issues that people have, even if, and especially if, we don't know how to fix them. We often don't want to see what we don't know how to fix because it makes us feel bad. The flip is we want to see everything so that we can help you better because we're great partners. We know we don't know how to help you with everything, but we're going to be a partner with you to help you get all the help you need over time. So we want to get really good at not only screening, but writing down what we see, applauding the discovery of it, creating opportunities to help you in small steps to make progress. Okay, and not for the purpose of sending you somewhere else, but for helping create a better connection with us. Which brings us to the second principle. What are we welcoming people into? Well, we're not welcoming people in so that we can immediately send them out. Okay, we're welcoming people in to a partnership with us. In the moment, the partnership begins the moment people come in the door. It's not like we do for 5 weeks of intake and then find somewhere to send you. We're building a partnership from the beginning. And the characteristics of the partnership, what we know helps people, is empathy, hope, integrated helpfulness, and being strength-based. And we work within that framework in small steps over time to help people make progress. We have to let go of the idea that the minute we see a problem, we want to fix you. Our job is to create great partnerships to help you address all your issues in small steps over time. Empathy means we create space to listen to your story and we write it down so other people understand it. Hope means we purposely help you identify the most brilliant, beautiful, meaningful, spiritual goals for a happy life. And if you don't have them, we help you build them and we constantly go back to them so you feel more hope as you go. Integrated means that every one of us is a partner to help you with every issue you have. Even though we're not experts in everything, our job is to help you figure out how to make progress and find the help you need because we're all a team. And strength-based means that we're always helping to identify all the amazing things you're doing right for every one of your issues just to get through the day. The more challenges you have, the more strength it's taking you. None of us is perfect. All of us is using a lot of strengths to succeed. No one is a chronic relapser. Everyone is recurrently successful. And we build on that in small steps to go forward. We help build those relationships. If at some point there's a better place for you to get connected to, we're going to help you make that transition because it's not easy for you to build these connections. Okay? So we're in the relationship and principles build in and that this into work and stuff like that. So you're reminded, even when you're having a bad day, that this is the kind of stuff that you're in there to do. Principle 3, all people with complexity are not the same. This isn't surprising, except we immediately start trying to fit people into boxes. Hey, you're co-occurring. We're going to send you to the co-occurring group. Hey, we're going to send you to the co-occurring program. Oh, we're going to send you to that special place for people who have these 2 issues. Well, lots of people have complex issues. They're all over the place. People with single issues vary. Even 2 people with the same quote unquote diagnosis are not the same, let alone people with multiple issues. So the different programs have different jobs in our system. Your job is to work effectively with the people who tend to show up in your door, bringing all their issues with them. In addition, part of your job is to help other programs with their people, not by just referring people back and forth, but by helping people work with the people they already have. So more people can get what they need in a single door, and fewer people need duplicate or parallel service or fall between the cracks. Okay, so the more we do this, the fewer people get referred, more people get what they need in a single door, and everybody helps each other to be successful. right? And it's easier for staff to move around to be helpful, so the clients don't have to. So think about your consultation partners, people you provide and people you receive from, to help make this a reality. For people with complexity, we think all of the co-occurring conditions are primary. Not just diagnoses, not just mental illness and substance use disorders, not just medical conditions, but all your issues. If you are homeless, that's a primary issue. If you're in trouble with the law, that's a primary issue, and so on. Everybody's got all of their issues. Okay? Different people have different ideas about what's most important to them, but the basic best practice is what's the best intervention for each issue that you have for you, and how do we help you take the next baby step forward for all of your issues at the same time. If you think it's too complicated for you to understand, it's going to be way too complicated for the client. So make it simpler, make the steps smaller. Don't be in a big hurry. Make sure that you're matched to the progress that people need, a day at a time, a step at a time, so that they succeed. Identifying what their issue is, identifying that next step, knowing how to take it, being a great partner. For most diagnoses, quote unquote, there's medications, whether they're medical or mental health or substance use. And there's a whole range of psychosocial interventions to help you with your condition that people have to learn how to do in small steps over time. So find the best next step, help people do it, build a structure around you so that your treatment plans or interventions help people find these next steps rather than thinking you're going to fix people in a month or so and then move along. How do we help people make progress? Well, even though we are always in the action phase for everything, we realize that people may have many issues, but it's rare that people are always interested in working on all their issues. We have a language for talking about it. It's called moving through stages of change. And if somebody asks what stage of change a client is in, the correct answer is always for which issue. Because stage of change is issue specific, not person specific. And most people, like all of us, have many issues, and we tend to be in different stages for each one. So one of the things we learn how to do as we're identifying the best matched intervention for each issue is figuring out what stage people are in. Okay? And not being frustrated when they're not in the stage where we want them to be. That only makes it worse. Let's get good at meeting them where they are and practicing how you do stage matching, working with the things that people most want to work on for the things that are most connected to their goals, and then helping them figure out how to make small steps of progress and better decisions for other things that in the moment they're not thinking are as important to them to work on, and working within the partnership using motivational strategies and so on to help people move along. And here are the 6 stages of change, which I'm not going to go through. You've seen them all, I hope. But, there's some simple sentence prompts. You can incorporate them into your work and practice using them so you get good at it with people and their families and so forth. The final principle is when we're actually helping people, how do we help them not just listen to what we tell them and repeat back that they're going to do it, but how do we help people actually learn for each of their issues that they're working on, the specific skills they need to succeed? So we break the learning down into small steps. We give rounds of applause for each piece of progress, and we teach people the skills they need through practice, rehearsal, repetition, individually and in group, self-management skills, stuff you do by yourself, asking for help skills, meaning how do you ask for help as soon as possible for the issue when you're in trouble? You may need skills around taking medication. You may need skills around different kinds of psychosocial interventions, but make it really simple for folks to succeed. Okay, and we always talk about the skill training manual that we talk to everybody about by Roberts, Shaner, and Ekman, Overcoming Addiction, Skills Training for People with serious mental illness. And, they spend 10 pages on how do you refuse drugs offered by a dealer. When you see the dealer, walk fast, don't smile, okay? Don't make eye contact, et cetera, et cetera. The dealer offers you drugs, don't say yes, say these other things. The dealer puts drugs in your hand, throw them to the ground and walk away. It's really very simple to do the best practice. Most of the difficulty we have around this principle is not only are we not stage matched, we're talking over people's heads and we're being frustrated that they're not learning instead of slowing down so that we and they can be successful together. So in summary, there's no one correct program, and our job, and think about how you as a change agent are connected to a program, a process in your own organization, agency program, to implement these kinds of practices and interventions inside every process, policy, procedure, practice, paperwork for everybody. And everybody, starts, as you guys did 10 years ago with welcoming, and then you have to make steady step-by-step progress as you go forward. And so the goal is to achieve this so that every place people go in Milwaukee, this is what they encounter: welcoming, empathic, hopeful, continuing integrated recovery and support partnerships that naturally help people with multiple issues, providing all those wonderful interventions so that everybody can move toward the goal of a happy, meaningful life, which they're capable of achieving and deserve to get. We're going to take a very short stretch break for a couple of minutes. And then Chris is going to jump in and talk about change agentry.
So why don't we give folks just another minute, and then we'll get started back up. Okay, why don't we launch again? Hopefully enough folks are back from the break. What I wanted to talk about and have everybody think about is some more of the detail about change agent function, and what change teams, how change teams get positioned to have the most effectiveness. So what we call this is Change Agentry 101. So many of you have been in the business of doing all of these things for a very long time. And so this is a refresher. And some of you folks may be like coming into this process and not completely understanding, where do I fit and what am I actually doing and how do I, how do I function within this group? And so I'll go into enough detail, I think, to have all the new folks kind of get the gist. And I'll keep it a little bit, up above some of the nitty-gritty detail, because it takes quite some time for people to get the understanding down at the root level of literally what do I do on a given day. So let's start just by saying the obvious, which is that change agents, when they come to whatever the table is, join the process, what you find out very quickly is that these are the folks, amongst many others, but these are the folks who are extremely passionate about creating this kind of inspiration for people, because they're understanding that the complexities that people are dealing with are sometimes they're overwhelming. Sometimes it's difficult to figure out how to actually help people. Sometimes you want to share the inspiration of things that have worked and been successful. But the underlying trait is that it's a passion behind this. And not everybody, many people are, almost all of us are passionate about the work and the care that we deliver. But not everybody is passionate about becoming the vehicle of changing a system. Not everyone is perfectly comfortable out there in front of where the system might be. So change agents use that kind of passion and their basic nature to be front runners. And what that means oftentimes is that the group and the folks on the group are really kind of putting themselves ahead of the ending. And that's a wonderful thing to do, sometimes not so much, because it exposes new ideas and it has people kind of in the, well, why are we doing that conversation. So change agents, it's the passion that people have that really carries them into that kind of awkward front runner position. Most of the folks who do change agentry, they don't really mind that front runnerness. They don't mind getting ahead of the system. And in fact, oftentimes people who become change agents are the very ones who take the lead. And people listen to them, and people are comfortable kind of following their lead. And it's not that change agents are the most expert at providing any particular type of thing, is that change agents are folks that have the trust of, and it's an ongoing piece of building trust, both individually and as a team. And so part of what helps everyone understand that a change team is not just something that's out there to make life difficult, but a change team is invested in this kind of vision and has is on an expedition to figure out how to really import these things into the system as a whole. And the backbone, as Ken was talking about, the backbone of what's happening is really looking at those principles and how do they answer, the most important questions about how do we help people with their needs, and then how do we build hope into what we're doing. So the change representatives or the change agents or the agents of change or whatever it is that systems like to call these teams, the most robust group is a group that is made up of people who represent the entire system. So you start obviously with those who are willing and want to, but teams often develop over time as more and more folks with different functions see the logic of joining. So what we like to tell everybody and teach everybody is, if you're thinking about creating a change team, think about representation and think about all of those people who are commonly represented, but then think about the people who usually don't have an organized voice. And maybe even the folks who don't feel like they're a part of the system that is building welcoming. So their functions may be some other thing on the outside. Well, what we like to have people understand is that if you're connected to the system in whatever way, doesn't matter what your role is, you're part of the team. You're a part of that system. You belong. And so we look for this collection of folks who, when you look at it, you say, yeah, that's the team. I get it. So we're very, very invested in helping systems understand that this is a big opportunity to bring people in service and their families to the table and give them another outlet for organized input and the ability to change things. Certainly frontline clinicians, but clinicians who and care providers who represent different types of care providers. So having people, for example, who are in the counseling arena, having people who are in the support and case management world, having people who are prescribers. If you look at any frontline function, what you say is, do we have representation of that function? Okay, and then the support staff, it's very important to pay attention to whether or not we actually have the support staff at the table. And this is something that most systems have to work on. And it sometimes brings the most important content about how it is, what the experience that people are having when they knock on the door. So it's a very wonderful thing, to look at it and say, do we have frontline people who do things like quality improvement? Do we have folks who do billing? Do we have folks who are the frontline phone receivers? All of these kinds of things that are the kind of the non-clinical arena, but are just as important and just as much a part of the system as a whole. So you look for representation, you ask yourself, are we fully at the table? The answer is always no. And you just keep trying to build more and more representation to the table, and it takes time. And people will come and go. And so it's a constant refreshing of, do we have that voice there? Now, one of the things that people often, it's a little bit evasive in the beginning, is that every program and constituency, every group, has a change agent. And the agent, they work together as a single voice or a resonating voice. They become a team, but empowerment is an important concept. So the legitimacy of a change team comes from the heart and soul of what needs to be done. And the empowerment comes from everybody trying to row in the same direction for a right-minded purpose. And empowerment is not something that's, it's just, this is my frame. It's not something that someone gives to you. It's something that you have innately if you can pull it up and figure out how to get positioned. And with more people acting as a team and with this sort of resonant voice, it's easier for people individually to find that empowerment that they actually have and to use it. The team itself is a collection that if you look at it as a team, that group, the individuals with their sort of individual capacity, join those folks together, not just as a collection of individuals with the capacity, but as a team that is empowered. And that process of getting to the point where the team has literally a voice in what happens within a system and has the capacity to affect rules and policies and the kinds of things that govern a system. There's a great deal of wisdom in systems helping to create that capacity for a team. So the thing to focus on, which is another thing that's a little bit evasive in the beginning, change agents are connected to their programs, their constituents. And if you think about, where is my locus of control? Okay, so as an individual change agent, what do I have the ability to impact? And you might be standing there as a change agent and say, well, the only thing I can impact is what I do. And you say, great starting place, because if you're working on that sphere of influence, then you're working on a very good thing. It's for you, it's for your clients, and it gives you an opportunity to really think at a level of detail so that you're learning ahead of where other folks might be. But the other locus of capacity that change agents have is to really focus on their program or their agency and say, how do I work in partnership with my leadership? How am I a good partner and my leadership a good partner to me, so that we can focus on what our program does and really think of the things that need to happen at that level. And as a change agent, what happens is that person becomes kind of like the right-hand person for that agency or that program. So it's kind of the go-to thinking spot. Okay, you're our change agent. You're out there in the world and you're learning these things. You're bringing these things back to the program. Let's help you organize what you do within this program to help everybody here be successful. And so the first consideration for a change agent is to really say, I need to be in my span of control to really get started with this and then figure out how to move forward. My span of control is always myself. I can always change my own practice. I can examine the things that I do. I can think about how I want to do things next and better. And I work in an organization. And as a change agent, I'm kind of put forth out there to really be thinking about how does our program grow and how does our program formally adopt the kinds of policies and procedures that need to be in place, and how do I help do that? So the holding the idea that there's a program level responsibility is a start. It's a starting place. But as the team grows, the team starts to take on, and the members on the team start to take on this quality of, we're helping each other beyond our programs. So we're a team, and we can work together across whatever boundaries or silos there are. So it is easier for us as a change team that meets and comes together and thinks together to figure out, how do we partner? What would that actually look like? And if partnering means in the beginning, hey, I, as a change agent, I can help you over there as a change agent really think through what you might want to be doing. And sometimes it's the person in the other world that has a little bit more attention than the person who's actually the change agent in the program, because it's just a phenomenon that people like to listen to people outside of their program sometimes. So if change agents work together and say, hey, I'll come help you, help people learn and understand, and you come help me, help people learn and understand over here, then we're beginning the capacity to work across boundaries. And it becomes much more sophisticated than that, but that's a good starting place. The team as a whole, and you all, I know, experienced this over the years and very deeply, is that you're connected to each other and your support group. And it's a community, and that community grows and learns and passes its knowledge on and helps develop things. But it's a group of people who are trying to move in the same direction to do something very earnestly. It's very difficult to kind of be in this position out in front, and there's a lot of things that come up that are really hard to work through on your own, but you have people who are the folks around you who are there by nature very supportive, and you want to really build that concept and that capacity into your change agent team as you continue to grow. There's also the capacity to help with content pieces. So for example, if I have a particular clinical understanding in one arena, and you have a program that does something, and that program needs to understand that clinical issue, maybe I could come over here and I could do a learning experience with your staff. Maybe I could come over here and I could sit in on one of the groups that you do, and I can watch and observe and then give you some, learned advice in terms of how to do that group with people who have this particular kind of complexity. So there are things that relate to helping each other at that sort of deeper clinical level. And it's always good to be kind of scanning the environment for those opportunities, and as change agents really coming to the table asking for the help that you need and that you want. And if you practice that with each other, it's amazing how asking for help gets easier over time, and how much people actually do want to help each other. So we say this, and we say this lovingly, and most people understand what we mean the first time we say this. So change agents become empowered individually and collectively to work in partnership with systems through established order system. That's a revolution, but it's a partnership. And what we mean by the established order of the system is, if the system is built in a way to produce an outcome that you don't want, then you actually have to overthrow or rebuild or construct the functioning of that system and all of the things that make it a system. You have to rewire those things. And so literally you're turning over things like policy, procedure, and practice, but it's a partnership. Change teams are not folks who run around rogue, trying to do things to other people. They're partners. And system leadership, whether they start this way or not, and most systems have some folks who are, just right in there, and maybe one or two folks who don't understand yet. But system leadership really values that partnership, because it's very hard for leaders of these systems to make things happen top down. It's not a great effective style if you want to inspire the people who are trying to inspire others. So really thinking about that partnership, and this is something to talk about, within the change team is, what does that partnership look like? And if I'm not feeling as an individual that this is the kind of situation I'm in, maybe I'm not really looked at as a partner. Maybe I am actually looked at as a bit rogue, and they sent me to the change team to kind of get me out of the way, whatever the situation is. Then your colleagues may have some helpfulness for you. So somebody may have started that way, and here's how they made their path to having a clearer, more substantial partnership with leadership. So you have to talk these things through. But the goal, remember from everything we've been saying, the goal is to overthrow the established order, not overthrow people, not do things that result in chaos, but to rewire the system as partners. Now, the capacity for a change team to really affect change, like in a big way, requires that change team representation, the team by virtue of representation, to be in the places, working with the groups and other teams, leadership and others who are sitting at the table and actually have formally the singular capacity to do this rewiring. So if you have all of this intelligence in this group over here, which is really starting to understand something that needs to happen to create meaningful change, and then you have all of these processes over here that are thinking about what do we need to do next, policy, procedure, and practice. And those two things never meet and sit at the same table and have that capacity to interlock and have jointly created ideas. Then this effort over here becomes very frustrating because these teams begin to understand at a level of detail what should be the organizing structure, what kinds of things, guidance do we give to folks in terms of our policies and procedures. And so you're always looking for that place where the change team is represented at that table. And one of the features, and this is really something to work on in most systems, the change team at these tables is not a referential group. Like you guys as representatives of this change team are sitting at this table, we're interested in what you think, but now go away and we'll make the decisions. The best, most effective change processes are where the representation is there as a real team partner and is enlisted in and challenged to be a part of the design team, a part of the construction team, and so that these ideas actually show up in the things that are created, not because somebody just listened, but because we got all this really smart intelligence over here that can help guide in a substantial way the hardwiring, the infrastructure. So that takes time, but to know that that's number one, important, but to also know that it's possible. And given that you guys have been, doing the things you've been doing for a long time, my guess is that over the years, you may have had waxing and waning of this, but my guess is over the years, the change team is seen as and functions as a formal component of the system and how it creates the infrastructure that it does. You always got to remember the goal, because there's drift that happens over time. Something may distract attention, and then all of a sudden over here, a change team looks back and says, well, how do we get over here? Because here's what our vision was, here's what our mission was, here's where we're inspired. And so thinking about those fundamental things, and really challenging, are we taking our programs into a world of being more welcoming and hopeful and all of the other wonderful, effective things that we can become? And you have to challenge yourself. Are we still on task? And there'll be subtasks and all sorts of things that people work on, but are you fundamentally on task with what you started to accomplish? And one of the best places to look is to say, are we affecting change in our programs? Is that really happening? What kind of change? Are we challenging ourselves to really see if that's the kind of change that's helping people? Do we, test things and then rediscover things and, trial and error and all of that stuff? Are we still in the same ball game here? So really looking at the programs and say, okay, for all this effort, where are we going? What have we gotten to? Is it working? And then what do we do next? And a lot of this, as you guys know, is kind of the essence of continuous quality improvement at the program level. And you guys have done so much in the arena of continuous quality improvement. But the connection of saying, hey, these principles and values and these things we're trying to accomplish, that's the root of what we're doing in continuous quality improvement. We may have many projects, but all of that focuses our energy on moving in the direction of these important principles and values and the mission and vision of what we started as a change team. The whole other area to really think about, so we have the program issue here, is the program moving in a direction that we would like to see that causes better outcomes. But are the people who actually deliver the hands-on care, are those folks, are they making progress? Is the individual person in our program who's working with the folk that comes in to get some help, are those practices improving? Are we seeing that the direct care delivery folks are engaged in learning and able to change their own practices and contribute to the conversation within our organization, our agency, our program? So it's the same thing, though, is that you want to make sure that you're still on task. Is what we're doing with the frontline folks, is it still on task? Are we helping them become more welcoming, more hopeful, strength-based, trauma-informed, complexity-capable, and all of the kinds of things that, we wrap into the language to really be about helping folks be successful living their life out there in the world. So it's something that, it's multidimensional, it has many aspects. There's lots and lots of room for things to grow and improve. But there's an important concept to this, is that it's very hard to not get frustrated, and it's very hard to really create sustainable change when everybody is reaching up beyond their span of control. So there are many, many things that, given the way things are organized at that moment, there are many things that no individual, no leader, no change team, nobody can change at that moment. There are many things you can. You can change them collectively, you can change them individually, but there's always something above you that feels like it limits your capacity. As a team of people, you can challenge that. Is it myth? Is it really written in the rule? Is there something that we put into our culture which sustains it? I mean, you can do all of this kind of thing. But if what you're feeling like you have to do to be successful is to say, I have to impact and change that thing that's well above my ability to change, then as a change agent, as a change team, it's a constant source of frustration just being there. So when you come back, though, and you say, within my span of control, there's always me and what I do. There's the program that I work in. There are the people that I work with. There's the team that's being built. There's the capacity to sit as a team and at places where decisions are actually made. And the more we stay within our span of control, this thing happens, which is we collectively increase our span of control. So as you get good at doing these building blocks, your span of control increases. And so over time, you have much more ability to impact those things that seemingly were forever limiting where you might go. But remember, there will always be things above that will be there where you bump into them. But you always think to yourself, what do we need to do as a baseline building block to be able to start to chip at that one? Just chip away and do the things that we can. And if as a change team, as you guys have done for the last 10 years, if as a change team, you are organized, the voice becomes a part of the decision making, you become recognized for your helpfulness and your ability to be successful at helping the rewiring, you get noticed. And it sounds like maybe, hey, we're not doing this to get noticed, but being noticed is actually how you start to be able to chip away at these things. So if folks aren't aware of what you're doing and what you bring to the table, then the people who are doing things that are kind of up here that you don't have, control over, it's not within your span, they know you're there. And it's important because if this is happening up here and nobody understands their capacity to understand anything differently, then things just go on and on and on the way they've ever been. So highlighting who you are and highlighting your accomplishments and really kind of putting your collective intelligence into the world helps you be more effective. So you guys celebrate in all kinds of ways, and your group as a change team, people know you're there, and they know that you're an important part of the system, and they appreciate that. And you say, okay, well, who next needs to know? And so you guys talk with each other and kind of figure out where are we going next with ourselves so that the world knows this capacity. And so this part of who else needs to know was an inspiration behind one of the things that Ken and I did, which, Amy has helped tremendously with, and it has been supported by Jen and others, is creating this feeling of an unconvention. And the spirit behind an unconvention is to bring folks from different areas. We brought many folks from across different systems, change teams together to know that they exist, to help one another, to be contacted to one another, but also to have the world recognize that this is just not one isolated thing over there. This is something that's happening across our industry, so to speak, which is really powering us up to be more driven by the people who actually own the system, which is the people who are in service and the people who deliver that service. And all of that administrative wraparound is there to make it easier for people to do what they do. So I'm going to step away and hand it back to Ken, and he's going to carry us through to the end. So once again, thank you. And here I will move away from the camera for a moment.
Hi, and while we were talking, we got a couple of comments, and I just wanted to reinforce those comments. Jen Whitwer commented on how in your system, she said, we like to refer to welcoming as, quote, radical hospitality, and said, how far can we go to welcome someone into our system? And, that is a great starting place for thinking about what we're trying to do, because welcoming, how far you go to welcome people into the system is based on how much distress and complexity they have and what the consequences are of them not being welcomed. In a way, for people who are relatively healthy and well functioning, it's okay that there's some hurdles for them to get in the door in order to do the work they need. For the people who are most in trouble and most out of control, one way of thinking about it is, of course, they're going to have a hard time getting into our system. The question is, how does our system allow itself to wrap around them? So how does our system fit the person in greatest need, rather than how does the person in greatest need try to fit themselves into our system? And as long as you keep that conversation going, you're heading in the right direction. Someone named Britt had a suggestion, which had to do with, could we have Avatar reflect the list of the person's complex issues, rather than putting ourselves in the position of listing primary, secondary, tertiary, which is a great suggestion. And apropos of what Chris is talking about, one of the basic frameworks of change agentry is that bottom-up communication. So, the county folks really are try hard to nurture all of the MC3 members. But it's also important to provide a structured way for people in MC3 to come back and say, hey, county, here are some ideas that we're coming up with for how to improve the architecture of our system in service of what we're trying to do back home in our own organizations. And how to have that back and forth be a regular part of your business is really cool and very valuable for folks to participate in. So anyway, what I wanted to do, this is a very quick discussion, but I went over the principles earlier, but I wanted to illustrate a little bit about the thinking about how you adapt these principles during something in a time of crisis, which the COVID pandemic is a good example.
Where's the court to this?
I'm hearing somebody who is unmuted, and I'm not sure how that's occurring.
You had it yesterday on here. Look on the bed. You had it yesterday.
If you do have your microphone on, just make sure that you slash it and also turn off
What's
your
password for school?
We're trying to locate it, Ken,
Your
but we're wondering
for,
if it might be on your side.
I'm gonna use the same password. LC3? Is it LC3?
No.
What is it?
L.
Gary might have found it.
Ken, I've muted everybody. Could you unmute yourself, please?
So Pam Flighter just reminded us that, you started with 100 change agents and have grown to thousands. So round of applause for you guys. That's such an important part of your story. Thank you, Pam. So let's just look at the issues with the principles, because one of the things that we found is, people will say like, well, we can do these principles, but oops, now things are getting difficult, or the client is difficult, or, hey, we have a budget cut, or, hey, we've had staff turnover. So we'll put the principles over to the side until we fix our crisis. And what we've learned over the years, not just in the consulting business, but in the operating system business, is when things are difficult is exactly when you need to go back to the principles and apply them even more. So when you're thinking about the client who is the most challenging, that's a good time to go back and think, how do we apply the principles to that person, rather than thinking, oh, we're supposed to put them aside because you can't welcome that person. When you're thinking about, oh my goodness, we have a budget cut, how do we pull together as a team to think about how to use the principles to think through what we want to hold on to in the budget cut so that we build our core values even stronger as our resources may get smaller. And in a crisis like a COVID pandemic, when everything is turned on its ear and all of a sudden you're delivering services in different ways, you're not in person with people, you're dealing with folks remotely, you may be covering people you don't even know very well. People are in unfamiliar locations, both service delivery and service recipients, using often unfamiliar technology. Thinking about how to use the principles at that time, right now, can be very, very valuable. And one of the things the principles can remind you to do is to slow down and remember what's most important in your encounters. So the things that are rolling around in your head that are, anxiety about how your Zoom platform works, or, oh my goodness, how do I document this or that? Keeps in mind the foundation. What is it that I'm bringing into this as a person? And what is it that the person I'm trying to help on the other end, what's most important for them in this encounter? Rather than, oh my God, think of all the things I may not be able to do. What can I do that's actually helpful? So with that in mind, whoops, gotta go back to the slides. Here we go. So in a crisis, complexity is no less of an exception. And we want to start, as we always do, with welcoming. So consider that we're all having a hard time, but the more complicated your life is, the more likely you're having a harder time. And the people who may need us the most or are having the hardest time are likely to benefit most from our being purposely welcoming during this time. A little bit of welcoming makes a big difference. I'm so glad you're okay in this situation. It's really a priority to reach out to you and make a connection and to help you feel, through whatever platform we're using, that connection matters to us. Okay, and then we want to welcome you as you are with whatever it is you're struggling with. Not so much how do you fit into our framework, but how do we reach out through these weird platforms, if you will, and make that connection that lets you know that we're not just checking you off a list, but we're welcoming you as a person with all of the issues that you're struggling with in the reality of this situation. Secondly, the way that people make progress, as I said, one of the harder things that we have to remember is, recovery is a lifelong process, even from one issue, let alone multiple issues. Everybody, all of us, are always making slow steps of progress for all of our issues over time. And something like a pandemic reminds us that going slower is sometimes the best thing to do. So, first of all, during a crisis, when we're disrupted out of our normal scheduled activities, remember that having more frequent small contacts may be helpful. There are a lot of people that benefit from lots of brief phone calls, which we normally wouldn't do because they're not quote unquote billable. But now we're in a framework where that stuff is actually a good thing. And hopefully we will learn something about holding on to some of the benefits of this new way of approaching people. So that those people who actually do better with those smaller contacts can have access to them, makes our lives easier and theirs. And we can help people with smaller impetus, more frequent steps without a whole lot of effort. Further, remember that when you're reaching out to people, we're all feeling overwhelmed. So are the clients. It's a good starting place to remind people that even in the midst of this challenge, their hopeful vision for themselves is no less important. If they're lost in the immediacy of the moment, reminding them that they're still on the same journey of hope is even more valuable. Reminding people as they're starting to feel like, oh my God, everything's going wrong, is to point out all the things they're doing right, the strengths they're using to survive, is very helpful. It's a good starting place. If you engage using the principles in sequence, even for someone you don't know very well, with the welcoming contact, a piece of inspiration that's based on their own goals. Let's take a breath. Let's think about all the things you're doing right to survive and applaud your strengths because you're bringing a lot to the table in the middle of this crisis. Great job. And let's together figure out one small thing that we can do together to make progress. Yay, team is a very nice starting place to kind of help organize the work. All people with complexity are not the same, and that is absolutely true in the middle of a crisis. When we're in something like this, where there's a little bit of an assumption that the thing that you're worried about is what everybody else is worried about too. And sometimes that's true, but sometimes, at least this has been my experience, that people that I work with, as clients, and I still have a few, have something very different on their mind about what's important than what I think they're thinking about. So just like in general, don't project, that, oh, you're co-occurring, therefore this, or you have an alcohol problem, therefore you have that. Take the time to understand how people are experiencing their issues and needs, and also how they're experiencing the COVID crisis. What is most on your mind? Sometimes people say, we've heard a lot, a lot of clients will say, social distancing, that's what I do routinely. This is easy for me. Okay, my big worry is going out and having to deal with people. Okay? So I'm just a little nervous about when we're all going to be supposed to go out again because I'm having fun at home. Okay. Somebody else may have a completely different backwards worry. They're worried about someone else in their family. They're not so worried about themselves. Somebody may be, have a whole different worry about how to keep things clean. Who knows? But whatever your client is concerned about, that's what's important to them. And your job is easily listen to their experience. You don't have to fix it. But join them in their experience and say, hey, I'm a partner. Let's help figure this out. Go over what your person is doing for each issue, not in a global way, like what's your 90-day treatment plan, but hey, you're stuck at home. If you're stuck at home, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Okay. And let's get really into details about problem solving, what might not be working. So, here's an example, your usual 12-step meeting isn't meeting because people are social distancing. Okay. So let's literally fix something to all piece of that you can use instead. whatever that happens to be. A different meeting, one that's meeting, do you have a phone number? Can you call other people? Whatever it is, let's think it through. Won't be perfect, but it's a step forward that you can do. Consider the safety plan for the crisis as an issue. How do I get food? How do I, if I'm not going out, how do I go out and buy food safely? If I'm getting it delivered, how do I get delivered? Whatever the issue is, there's something that people are trying to figure out in a new circumstance. You don't have to solve everything. Find some simple things and sort through one thing at a time in small steps. Similarly, what stage of change is the client in regarding the crisis as a whole, as well as different components of the crisis? So remember, what you might think is the most important action issue may be different from what the person you're trying to help is. Calm down. What stage of change are they in? Can I be stage matched with each of their issues, their usual issues, as well as any issues they're having in the middle of the crisis? And can I be really concrete? Okay. So how do I get my meds? Well, let's actually get down into the skills. Where are you going to go? How are you going to go? I just had a call with a client this morning about, how they negotiated walking out, getting themselves to the pharmacy, picking up their prescription, how it worked and what they walked through. And it was just for one prescription pickup, but it was like a very helpful, very concrete, let's walk through how this is going to work suggestion and, discussion, and it was helpful. So being concrete and simple, which is often hard for us, is a helpful focus about applying the principle of skill-based learning to the time of crisis. Do I have a mask? What am I going to use for a mask? Where am I going to find a mask? Well, let's just figure something out. Okay, let's think it through. Do you want a mask? Okay, you do. What are you going to use? How do we do that? What are the pros and cons? Blah, blah, blah. Pick one simple thing. You don't have to solve everything. And if you've helped with one thing, and round of applause for solving that, great job. Okay, now the illustration here is only that taking a breath, using the principles, helps you to focus on meeting your people in crisis where they are, reminding that in the middle of the crisis, things like welcoming hope, strength, taking small steps, matching stage of change, practicing specific concrete skills are more important than ever. The biggest enemy is our own anxiety, that we need to be more helpful than we can actually be in the moment. And the pressure we have to fix everything at once, which we can't do. And the more that we kind of settle into we'll meet you where you are for today and help you get through the next step on the path, and then we can connect with you later, the easier it is for us and the more helpful we're going to be in our clients applying the principles in the middle of the crisis. So anyway, everybody, we've covered a lot of ground today. Thank you for being great partners and listening to this. If, I said at the beginning, if you have additional questions or you need additional resources, you can contact us directly. Our emails are on the slides. You can contact us through Amy or anyone else. It's a pleasure for both of us celebrating your 10th anniversary with you.
Round of applause, guys.
Round of applause for MC3 2020. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Amy, any comments? Oh, I forgot about, there's something in the comment box. Do you want to say something about that, Amy, about the certificates?
Well, I have people, it says present.
Hi, guys. Your
Amy
certificate
wanted
of
to
attendance.
remind me that there's something in your,
I think.
go ahead.
Yep, no, your certificate of attendance link is right here. I'll add it again so that you can just grab your, remember there's a survey in front of it. And then once you complete your survey, then push submit and your certificate will pop up. Great job, Ken and Chris. I love seeing you again.
Thanks, Agentry. Great seeing you too.
Bye-bye.
Can I leave then? It's over?
I'm gonna elbow bump you.
Where is it? I don't know where the certificate is or was.
It should come through your email too. That's how I got it the last time.
It's in the chat. Amy put a link
It's in the chat section.
Yeah.
So if you go into your chat section, if you kind of put your cursor over where your face would be on your computer, there'll be a little, like it says conversation. And then,
I got it.
Okay, and then it will pop up and then there will be a link. I'll add it again so that you can grab it again because it gets kind of, here it is again. And then what you do is you click on that link and it will take you to a survey of how you enjoyed the meeting. And then that survey then will say submit when you get done and boop, your certificate of attendance will pop up.
Hey, what? Yeah.
What, Jim?
I was just playing. I just want to say everyone have a great day.
Did you get your certificate of attendance?
All good. All good. Bye.
Goodbye. We'll see you later. I miss you guys.
I know. I miss you too.
All right. What are we supposed to do again?
Okay, here, I'll put it in there. I'm going to keep kind of plugging it in there so you guys can find it. So here we go. I'm going to paste it in the comments section. So if you don't know where the comments section is, put your cursor over where your face would go on the computer. Here, I can share my screen.
Okay.
So if you put your cursor, see how my cursor is moving? And see this little kind of comment box right here? Push on that. And then all this stuff is going to start popping up over here, all these comments. And then you'll see a link, and the link will take you to the survey that will connect you to the certificate of attendance. So I'm going to put it in there again right now. Let me know if you guys have questions. I'm right here.
Where the comment section is where?
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. Okay. You're okay. I know it's kind of confusing, huh? Okay, so you should be looking at what I'm looking at when I go on my screen now. If you put your cursor kind of where your face might be on the computer, this toolbar will pop up right here. See this toolbar? And then if you push this button right here that says conversation, all this white stuff is going to pop up over here.
All right. All right.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Pam and Mary.
Hi, Amy. Great program.
Yeah, it was fun to see them again, huh?
Well, one of my staff members was eating on the screen in the beginning.
What? I didn't even see it. I promise I didn't.
Really?
No.
Oh my God, it was like way on my screen. I'm like, stop.
Oh no. Oh. Was it when I was doing my announcements? That's probably why.
It was through like the first half of the meeting. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Miss Aline?
Yes. Do you need help?
Yeah, I can't figure this out. I don't
know. Okay. Can you can you see me? Can you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again, okay?
Hey, Micheline.
Okay.
Oh.
So watch me do. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to show you what I'm looking at. Okay, so when you look at your screen, you want to just put your cursor. See how I'm moving my cursor on the screen? This toolbar is going to pop up. This whole big toolbar is going to pop up. Okay, and then you're going to want to push this button right here.
Okay.
Make sure everybody's little comments are going on over here.
Oh, you know what? I have an iPad. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Are you not getting it?
I'll try again.
Where are the comments?
Well, what you're looking for is this link right here, because this link is going to take you to your certificate of attendance.
Amy, you have to show them where the conversation box is.
Right here.
Right there.
So it's like, looks like a little.
All right.
And you hit that, and then a conversation will come up along the side.
So make sure you tap on this.
Alongside, what comes up?
All the comments.
It says meeting chat at the top.
Yep. It says, can you guys see this? Pam, can you see this? When I move my cursor?
No. Oh, because I have an iPad. It's not seem to be working with my iPad.
Meeting comes up.
Shoot.
Okay. For those of you who cannot get it, can you get do you have my email address?
No. Can I get your email address?
Yes. And I'll send it out. I'll send a link out to you personally.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
what
so
is
you
your
ready?
email?
Okay, so Amy, AMY.
Okay.
Dot. Mabius, MOE as in Edward, B as in boy, IUS.
Okay.
At Milwaukee, all spelled out. County, all spelled out.
Okay.
WI.gov.
Okay.
So if you send me an email and
So I'll
just say,
send you an
I
email?
need the link for the certificate of attendance, that's super simple for me to send along to you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
No
Appreciate
problem. No problem. Sometimes people just can't get into like Pam can get into the comment section last time, so.
Hey, Amy?
Yeah.
If Jane.
Okay. I'll email you.
Here, let me try to stop recording. Hold on 1 second. Try now, Mary.
Was I supposed to be able to print the certificate?
So we'll give you a document, and then you can put it into your drive and then print it later.
Okay, hopefully something will show up. I don't know if I did it right.
Let me know.
You should be able to print it. I don't have a printer at home, and I'm at home, so